Hey, welcome everybody to the live stream series from the cultureworks.ai, our community where we create a safe place for people to talk about anxiety and mental health in the workplace. We take 15 minutes, we dissect the brilliant articles that Adrian Gossick writes on Forbes magazine. Oh, there he is right there. Wait, Adrian, wave to everybody. And today we want to talk about, what's working in the Great Resignation. What are companies doing to make sure when they get that great talent that they keep it? And Adrian, you talk about first and foremost that we live in a world of personalization. Why don't you expound on that a little bit?
Right. And everybody joining us, yeah, let us know where you're joining in from. Big hello to Shane from London and everybody else who's joining in today. So, really when we think about this personalization, that's, in consumer marketing, we know that's the trend, right? Netflix knows your viewing preferences better than your significant other. Google knows how to, hit you with ads that are specific to you. You even think about buying a new bike helmet. Well, the next month, all you see are bike helmet ads. so now, why do we not think the personalization can be most effective in managing people? And what's the biggest problem, right, Jess? It's time. I just don't have time for that.
Yeah. And yet you do that little bit of prep in the beginning, and it can save you a whole lot of time and heartache on the back end. What are the numbers? Anywhere from 150 to 200% of a person's salary to replace them.
Yeah.
And that's just the money side, right? Think of the disruption to your customers, to your product flow, the knowledge that just walks out the door. So it's what's the old expression? A teaspoon of prevention is worth a pound of pain.
Yeah. And the idea here is, in fact, we had a wonderful webinar we hosted yesterday, or panel, and one of the senior or CHROs, he said, don't think of this as the Great Resignation. Think of it as the Great Awakening.
Right.
And people are saying, hey, I don't have to work in this way anymore. I need my manager to actually know what my goals are, what drives me. We interviewed for one of our books a guy named John Prey, who is a former brigadier general in the U.S. Air Force. Not exactly the warm and fuzzy type, typically, are they, brigadier generals? And what did he say, though, Jess? You interviewed him, if you remember.
Yeah, he said everybody has a story, and you should know that story. In fact, it was advice that his wife gave him. You got to love it when a brigadier general goes and gets advice from, he's clearly married well, right? And she said, you've got 120 employees working for you, and they can make a lot more money working for profit. So what is it that's going to keep him here? What's going to be the mission, helping military families adjust to the communities that they've worked so hard to protect. And secondly, that what they do matter, that they matter, that their story matters. And she said, spend as much time as you can learning their stories. And I thought that was such great advice. And I want to just jump back to Stefan Charbonnier. You mentioned him, the CHRO of L'Oreal, the Great Awakening. I think that's such a great positive way to position the Great Resignation, which was negative. This is a time for us to reinvent, to do something different, to start listening. And I just found his insights to be really on point and positive, which we're always looking for, right?
Yeah. And one of the ideas, and we've talked about this for a while now, but it's never been more important, is this idea of job sculpting. This isn't the one thing that a manager has control over. You can't give somebody huge pay raises typically. You can't give them, better benefits. Hey, Elton, those teeth look a little wacky. I'm going to give you a better dental plan. No,
Right.
You can't do that, right? No, what you can do is help them with their career development, though. That's what every manager can do. Doesn't mean getting them promoted. It means letting them grow and develop. And we call it job sculpting. And the idea is, what can you add that to their plate that they may actually enjoy doing? Not just dumping more work on, but things that they really would love to do. What can you take away from them? What can you transfer to somebody else? For years I was doing the bookkeeping in our little company, and one of our other employees actually wanted to do that, and we transferred it over, and she was way better than me doing it because I just it wasn't a passion of mine. And what can you alter? What can you change in some way to be more motivating for people? So really simple, aren't they? Those add, alter, and transfer, but can be really powerful.
And to your point, small changes. It's rare that you have to make a monstrous change. But I always love looking at the chat and seeing where people are from. We got William from Austin, Texas, and Sean coming in from Oklahoma City. We got Jaza coming in. Actually, just says Jaza MBA. We've got somebody coming from Vancouver, which I wanted to give a shout out. Aloka Sharma. I grew up in West Vancouver, BC, so I love seeing your little Canadian flag there. And of course, Joe Inone, it's not a party without Joe. Tell me a little bit more about, when you say, what can I transfer? What can I change? So as a leader, you've still got to get stuff done though,
Yeah.
right? It's not like somebody can come in and say, okay, we're going to change everything you're doing. So where's Adrian, coach us up. Where's the balance there?
It's a good question. One of the people we interviewed was Jose Maria Zas. And now this is a fellow who had risen very high in the American Express organization. When we interviewed him, he was president of global card services for all of Central and Latin America. And he'd done extremely well in his career. And what he said was that this is not a nice to do. This is a must do. He says, the best results I achieve for my team is when I take the time to create individual profiles of each team member, including their professional strengths, their development opportunities, along with their personal motivations. He says, I don't only get to know their career goals, but their life goals. And then he starts building teams that will complement their strengths, their motivators, and also figure out where they want to go. Now, that sounds like some work, but he's also been extremely successful. And don't you think, yeah, I would work harder for somebody who did that for me?
Absolutely. I love that he says, I create a profile. And this is not profiling like, the negative when you get arrested because you've been profiled. This idea of what is your profile? I love that. I always kind of think too, the people that we work with and for, what's their brand? Like, what are they really known for? They're the ones that really dig in, or they're the ones that are always the peacemakers, or they're the ones that are the innovators. Think about that too in their portfolio. What's their brand? What is their real strength? It's interesting. We talk a lot about figure out what people's motivators are, figure out what they're passionate about. I think that plays into purpose as well.
Yeah.
Do they have an overriding purpose? To your point, you mentioned in the article, there's a guy that really wanted to preserve, events and man, a great photographer.
Yeah.
And so the company said, hey, will you take pictures at the corporate event? And he was delighted, because
I love this.
that's his purpose. I want to preserve these moments,
Yeah.
for people.
And it's figuring out, you're right, figuring out what their purpose is, what their motivations, and motivations are different than strengths. And we get those two mixed up because strengths are important. That's what you're good at. You're good at networking, you're good at giving presentations, but maybe, you want to be a little bit more creative at times, or maybe you want to use, different parts of, we're all very complex creatures. We're not just linear one thing we want to do. And so great leaders will figure that out. And so, the example you mentioned from the article, and I think Natalie will put the article in the string here, or she already has. John Lowry, CEO of Applied Innovation, and John had me in to give a speech a few years ago to his leaders, and he would told me about some things he does. Again, this was a very technical person, but his motivation was in preserving memories, and he just really loved the organization, and he also loved photography. And so they asked him, well, would you mind taking some pictures at some events? And he goes, are you kidding? And he says he brought every piece of equipment that you could imagine. And they said, we have a woman who works on our front desk. She's a receptionist, but she was taking English classes at night. He says, obviously that was something that was passionate to her. So he says, I asked her if she would review our corporate brochures before they went out. He says it saved us money on copy editing now. She does a great job. And is she ever motivated? She loves doing this. And so, the idea is, what can you add that would give somebody that extra lift?
Yeah, something to look forward to when you go to work. How often do we talk to people and leaders, just friends, and they get those Sunday night ickies, oh, geez, I got to go in Monday, I know they're paying me, and so I'm going to show up, and I got a mortgage. It's just not that engaging. When you've got something like that to look forward to, like you say, it gives you that little bit of a lift. It's so interesting to me how those little changes, and Adrian, does it come back to just being kind and being a little more kind and a little more aware in the workplace? Is it that simple?
Well, part of gratitude, and we wrote a book right sitting right to your right shoulder there, called "Leading with Gratitude." Yeah, that right. Yeah, and one of the things we found, the first aha from our research was that gratitude is not just about thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That becomes quite hollow sometimes. The first part of gratitude is actually seeing what's happening around you. That there are people who are helping you get where you're going, whether in your personal life or in your work life, etc. And the first step of gratitude is actually opening your eyes and saying, "Oh my gosh, look at all the good that is happening around me," and being and so it's about sight first and foremost.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a comment in the chat box from William. He says, "Who are the liaisons who travel in many areas of the organization? They're the ambassadors and cross pollinators." We often talk about connectors in the workplace.
Mhm.
And regardless of title, right? Who are the people that know? I live in Jersey for over 30 years now, New Jersey, and there's an expression: "I know a guy who knows a guy." Right.
Mhm.
So in your organization, there's always somebody who knows somebody, as you're bringing projects together, or you need a different view. And I think that's a really good point, William, where you say, who are the connectors? Who are the people that kind of know how to get stuff done? And I think
Yeah.
that's an interesting take on this awakening. We've got an
Yeah.
organization that's kind of an organism, right?
And what we tend to do as leaders is we tend to say, like for example, Chester, you are a cross pollinator. You land. Just so everybody knows, Chester will fly today. Actually, he's flying to New Orleans. He will land. And he said, "I met this greatest guy on the plane," and I go, "What are you talking about? You don't talk to people on the plane, you know." And but that's what Chester does, and so what we tend to do as managers is we go, "Adrian, you need to be more like Chester. You need to talk to more people on plane." Or whatever it is, right? We
And
tend
the
to
great
force
the
people.
great thing about this, by the way, is you don't, because you know me. You know what I mean? I mean, we
I
work
don't need
together,
to. Yeah,
so I don't need
yeah,
to talk to anybody. Chester will talk to him. He'll be fine.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so we tend to want to, I want you to be like me because I'm the boss and I love my tech characteristics, or I want you to be, instead of playing up to what people really are motivated by, what their strengths are, and really bringing out more of what they're good at versus forcing them to do something they really don't want to do.
Yeah. It's so interesting. We only do these for 15 minutes, and time really does fly by. I think what we're talking about as leaders, as you enter into this great awakening, what's working, I think it comes back to being kind and being curious. Know people's stories, find out a little bit about them. What are their passions? What are their purpose? And be kind about that. But be curious. Say, hey, what would you like to do? If you could do something really fun here at work, is there a talent you could bring? How much more fun would that make work? How much more engaging, and how much more likely would you be to stay? Well, a lot of these topics and stuff we're talking about are in our community, the cultureworks.ai. We want to create this safe place where we can say, hey, I'm kind of having this issue at work, and there'll be people there to talk to and help and support you. And of course, our wonderful book, Anxiety at Work, with all those tips. And with 60 seconds to go, I always say, Adrian, you get the last word. And then I say something else. This time I'm not, Adrian. I'm literally going to give you the last word on the great resignation. What works? What do you want people to remember from our 15 minutes together?
Well, this does take a little bit more time. Look, we'll just be honest. Leading nowadays, it's going to require a little bit more time to get to know the people in your care. But it's going to come back to you. And you're casting your bread upon the waters here. It will come back to you. So find things that are not only motivating for people, but also strength. Things that they can or you need more of. Um, and really help your people with, like you said, a little care, a little concern, a little kindness, and curiosity is really where this begins. It has to be true curiosity. In a way you can fake it, but the people will find out. So make this something that you really care about, and build a great organization by, it's really one person at a time.
I can't say anything. I'm not supposed to say anything. Anyway, hey, well, thanks everybody for attending. We always appreciate your support. If there's something in here that you think will help a friend, it's going to be on LinkedIn. It's recorded. Send it off to them, and just have a great day. We really hope you have a good mental health day. Be kind, be curious, be of service. That's our story, and we're sticking to it, right?